Welcome to Heart Talk in the City, where stories connect and hearts inspire action. Sometime in April 2026, our community gathered for an event called Ladies Let's Launch in Mountain House, California. It wasn't simply about starting business. It was about giving women permission to believe that their ideas deserve a place in the world. Today we're catching up with the main host who took that message beyond the stage. The event was organized by longtime Mountain House resident Adrian Miller. Adrian has continued building her work as a business coach, helping entrepreneurs move from ideas to action, while navigating the realities that every new business owner eventually faces. Adrian, welcome to Heart Talk.
Thank you for having me.
For those who might not know Adrian, tell us about who is Adrian and the work you do.
Well, I've been here at Mountain House for going on 11 years now. Moved here in 2015. My family, I have two boys, my husband and I, and it was just a great community. And just being here and going to a previous event, I thought bringing my business coaching here and helping women, like you said, give them permission to use their voices and use their ideas to go into business would be just a great idea to get them that motivation to launch is what I was looking for. I started business coaching about 5-6 years ago, and it came about during right before COVID. And it was offered through my job, right, where you learn how to coach and learn how to use that in your everyday actions at work. And I have a background in organizational development, and so I just thought pairing that with a business and bringing that forward would be great work to do.
Okay, that's good to hear, Adrian. And so, what inspired Ladies Let's Launch?
So I actually attended an event for Hadessa, and part of that event was really trying to find, and bring women together to mentor young, women and the young teenagers, youth, right? And I was thinking, oh, that's a great idea. I would love to, be part of some leadership, do some mentoring, volunteer, and the event really just turned into something more intimate and more about women, not even the teens, trying to find their way in these new avenues of life. And I was going, that's, what a great opportunity. That event wasn't for that. And I was going, I started thinking, what can we do, for these women who really needed something like being able to start their businesses, or they were just getting stuck in certain areas and didn't have connections or community to go forth. And so that really just, it was that aha moment, that light bulb where, I'm just looking around this room and women really stepping up, trying to help each other. Mm-hmm. And I thought doing an event where that was the actual purpose would be the way to go.
Mm-hmm. So since that event, mm-hmm. how has your journey, how has it evolved, your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh man, the event was amazing. It was more than I thought would even happen. I connected with Rana because it was her event that I attended before. Yes. And I said, you know how, to book things here. I was really just looking more for logistical type of advice, but she really, stepped in and was like, this is what we can do. And I said, well, I just want it to be free. I just want to get this business information out there. I want to meet people. I want to tell them about my business. And that was really the initial idea. It was going to be small. I was thinking maybe 20 people. And, and Rhonda just thinks big, and she's like, let's just open it up to this. If 10 people show up, then that's just great. And I was going, oh, okay, and I was like, well, Tony Robbins only had 3 people show up to his event. If I can get more than that, that would be awesome. That was my scoreboard, right? That was my gauge. And there was so many people that showed up. There was, just enough room to seat the people. And I think we had close to 50 people show up. And since then, not only have I met people, and gained a couple clients, but the idea of community just really sparked. So there's people in the community that have started getting together and hosting their own little small, just informational events. And it was just so important for people to be able to connect and not just, the like-mindedness of starting a business and things like that. But I really think that the biggest benefit that came out of the event was the connection and the thought of community of, hey, let me help you do what you're doing. And just growing from there. And it was just really great because people are tagging me, people are inviting me to things, and it's just been wonderful to connect with the community. Yeah.
Yes, I remember there was that spirit of community and people wanting to reach out and help each other, which is really,
absolutely.
really good.
Absolutely.
So has anything surprised you about building a business that you didn't anticipate and when you first launched?
And just building my own business, I think it was, my husband was encouraging me. I wanted to do it. I started, get it going. And I think what surprised me, and which is what surprises most entrepreneurs and business owners, is that, you're so inspired and you're so ready to go. You just think as soon as you start, it's just going to explode. And that's just not what happens. And then the slowing down and the really just getting bogged down and fatigued in your own mind of, gosh, like now it's all the doubt starting, and, you start building the excuses if I don't have time and things like that. And I think, the most surprising part was really having this idea going and thinking it was going to explode and having it shrink back down to like every single time you think you're starting over. But you're just building. And it was just kind of getting around that mindset of being able to go, okay, you know what, I'm not starting over, I'm building layers, I'm growing, and really realizing that every little step you do is part of that growth, right? Kind of like a plant springing a new leaf. It's not a whole tree yet, but it's still growing. It's still part of it. Yeah.
Has anything surprised you about building the business? From the event, as in?
From the event, probably just everybody was so excited. I think the messaging really came together because, and everybody kept talking about how the messages were just kind of in sync. And honestly, it was something that we didn't even talk about. We had one Zoom meeting and where we talked about logistics, and I said, hey, this is the order of things. I got everybody's bio and told them the overall, purpose of the event. But as the messages started being told, as the speakers started speaking, everything was just really in sync. And it became the overall message of, like you were saying in the beginning, of having a community, helping each other, having the permission to do things, right? It's okay to have those ideas and want to feel like, oh, you know what I'm doing right now isn't in my own job or my day-to-day, is it what I want to be doing? I have these greater ideas and dreams, and to be able to dream big. And I think just sitting there watching it myself and how everybody just kind of clicked. And so that was surprising. And then having everybody kind of just take hold of those ideas and start making these little smaller communities and taking action, right? Which is really what the message was. Like, hey, you know what? You have all this info. You have the inspiration. Like, do something with it. Take action. And then people just have. And it's just been great to watch and be part of. Yeah.
Yes, I guess a light bulb went on in people's minds.
Yeah.
That event.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been invited to a few events from the people I met.
Yeah.
At that day.
Yeah.
Yes. So people often celebrate the launch, but they will rarely talk about what comes after. The adjustments, the challenges. Would you like to speak into that? As in, the meat of the business.
Yes. So part of what I do is women who say you're just coming up with these ideas, right? I had one person reach out, and it's been from I'm just starting, getting my ideas together and wrapping them up. Like, this is what I want to do. How do I make this a business? All the way up to one person that signed up and they had an LLC. They pretty much had all of their ideas and the information together. and being able to go from there and package that, right? So you're looking at, people wanting to, how do I build a website? Where's my target audience? Who do I reach out to for this or this? I want to build this type of landing page. Like, what do I use? And it's so much information out there that you kind of get bogged down. And so my job is to actually, be able to provide that information for people. And so I think the challenge really is, once you have that idea, it's where do you go from there? Like, I have this idea, how do I get it out? How do I reach people? And I think that is really the hardest part, outside of actually having customers, right, and beginning to make money.
Yes.
But the hardest part is getting it together so it makes sense.
Okay. And when you're offering these services, are you directing people that, you can get this service here, or do you have a network of people?
Not really. I have a network of resources. I do have a network of people. So, for instance, people who want to go into the nonprofit area, that's not really my background, but I do know people who operate in those spaces. And so, I can refer them to them.
Okay. So what's one mistake that people make when they rush into business?
Oh, man. I think the biggest mistake people make is really not getting things in order, right? You say it's a mistake, but it's not really a mistake because it's also part of that growth, right? Just jumping right into it is what people tell you to do. Just get started, right? But I think if you want to say a mistake, some people think that they need to have, let me pay all this money for this website. Let me pay all this money for, you go buy a ton of supplies or a ton of this or a ton of that. And you don't really even know that you're going to use that. I think getting in the hole financially is probably one of the biggest mistakes people make. I've tried real estate before. And, I didn't have any clients. I went and found a broker, did the test, got the license, did all those things. Went and signed up with a broker, and the first thing I did was, I'm buying signs, I'm buying, magnets and business cards and all these things and sending out, mailings and things like that. But after that, it was like, okay, you know what? I'm in the hole financially, all this money, but I haven't gotten a client. I haven't learned, all the ropes to really get out there and network and say, the best thing to do, what I found out later was, you get with a broker who has just too much business and they end up funneling you business, right? So just really not doing the research to really get started. So one of the things, like I use the acronym GOAL, right? Just get out and learn what you're going to do first. Learn some of the steps first. Yeah, it's great to get it out there. But, post about it, say you're starting a business and all of those things, but you really need to learn in the background while you're doing that. Just don't, go get started and just, you're kind of haphazard doing things,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Be a student.
Yeah,
While you're in
absolutely.
the
Be
process.
a student. Yeah.
Okay. So how important has community been throughout this journey?
Oh man, very, very important. I think that it's honestly, Ladies Let's Launch wouldn't have been such a success if it wasn't for community, and specifically this community. There were people who came from outside of Mountain House, or people that I've talked to that were saying like, oh gosh, you know what? Our chamber doesn't do all of this for us, or it's really hard to connect with the people, in my area that I meet. If you meet somebody, they don't follow up, kind of thing. But here in Mountain House, like time and time again, not even just for the children, because they've had such an upbringing here from middle school on through high school, and they built their own community. I feel like I've built a community here too, because Ladies Let's Launch, being able to connect with Rana, being able to connect with the chamber, being able to connect with Brian, and the paper, and just really getting it out. And it almost felt like that it wasn't just my event. It really was a community event.
Sure.
And people were excited about it coming. So I think that was extremely important, and still networking with people and, just shooting around ideas. And so it's just been awesome. Yeah.
Okay. You've gone from launching a business to coaching others. How has leadership changed you personally?
Oh my goodness. I always felt like I would call myself a reluctant leader, right? You get placed in roles at work. I think I talked about at the event too, I'm somewhat of an introvert, right? And I think this whole thing has really changed my perspective on that, a lot of that self-talk, right? Of keeping yourself small and being behind, and you really can't do that when you have a business. And I think personal leadership, I think I really have had to step more into that role, not only leading and building a business for myself, because you do have to speak up for yourself and find things, but also being able to do things like hold an event and kind of like command an audience, or being able to have a group and talk to a group and, lead that group in conversation or question and answer, or just being able to get them information to where they're actually paying attention and listening. And I think a lot of that leadership also comes from leading by example, right? Yes. If I can't put myself in front of a group doing an in-person launch, because there's so many things online now, right? A lot of people just want to stay behind the screen and have that, little shield between you. An in-person launch was something that there was no way. You were not going to get me to do it. But it was one of those things was like, I have to do it. I have to get out in front of people. And so being able to say, hey, I know this is scary, and I know you haven't done this before, but actually leading by example and doing it and getting out and networking and coming out of that shell a little bit, I think really helps people go, okay, you know what, if she can do it and she was this afraid, I can do it too.
So what would you tell a fellow introvert?
I would say, that's a great question. I would say that kind of like some of those sayings that you say, you know what, you can step out of the box and really just believe that you can do it. If you can think about it as going to the next level. Think about it as, you know what, you're not, Irene the mom, Irene the regular, going by your day to day. You're Irene leading a business. To some extent, it's almost taking on another character or persona, right? Some people say, right? But, I think we all appear or present ourselves, either at work or with our family or, with friends in different ways, right? And being able to lead your business and be an entrepreneur, that's one of those things to where you have to take on that, like we were saying, that boss lady persona, that, you have to put on that leadership hat and really just get yourself out there the first time. And I feel like just doing that event has really just made a total shift in the things that, I feel like now I can go forward and do. Even, before at work when it was like, oh, you're going to have to be part of this, or, we want you to lead XYZ or present this presentation. It was terrifying, right? Now I feel like, I would just wait for the next opportunity to be able to do it,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then speaking on about that, there's another aspect to it, social media. There's a certain group of people, a certain age group, they think they'll just do business without social media. Would you like to briefly just say something about that?
In today's world, you cannot do business without social media. And it was one of the things I talked to, actually, Charity. She is a branding specialist. She's a marketing SME for a big company. And she was like, she didn't even intend to do that. But I spoke to her at another event, and that's why I invited her on to talk about that, because I was like, I really don't like being in front of the camera like that. I really don't, want to do all this social media stuff. And she was like, in this day and age, you have to, because it's kind of one of the first places people go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that advice.
Mm-hmm.
So what exciting projects are on the horizon?
Yeah. People keep asking for another event. And which is great.
They want events.
Yeah. So I think I'll probably start reaching out to some folks and saying, like what areas people want to hear. I know there were a few folks we talked to that wanted to actually be a part of the event to speak or that kind of thing. I have a friend who she spoke to. She was at Petals, and she has a little small, more intimate type space. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking about maybe doing something there. So just trying to get an idea of, what people want to be a part of next or what people want to see doing something like that. I'm working on building a community page on Facebook. And then people can either connect there and just, and offering information and resources there too. But people were really looking for another way to connect, and so I just haven't gotten that going. But so that's another thing.
Okay, we'll wait for that.
Yeah.
So where do you hope your business will be in the next 5 years?
Oh man, in the next 5 years, I would love to see Premier Coaching and Consulting actually consulting bigger organizations. Maybe I have helped many more people in this community, outside this community, build their businesses and get those going. I would also like to, maybe that would probably more like in 10 years, but have other subject matter experts in different areas of like finance or, marketing and that kind of thing be part of the business. I really don't want to be a solopreneur as much. I'd like to grow this if I can. And, so that's where, the 5 to 10 year range, that's really where I'd like to see myself.
Okay. And lastly, going back to Ladies Let's Launch, let's specifically talk about ladies.
Yes.
So I noticed many of us were moms. But how would you like to advise them, especially, balancing family, young kids, and wanting to start something and not being able to, or, having all that going on in your day?
Yeah.
What advice would you like to give?
It's really hard. It's really hard. And I actually set out almost a whole year trying to get my youngest son into college, right? You start doing the applications and all that thing, and you kind of get distracted. So being a mom, wife, having another job, that kind of thing, it really takes its toll, right, on how much bandwidth you have. But I think adding that that business or whatever idea you really want to build and do into your day, don't think of it as like something on the side. Don't think of it as a project. Think of it as a business, and it's something that you really want to see come to fruition. And what works for me is literally telling the family, which now we're empty nesters, but so at the end of my day, telling my husband, like, hey, I'm going to sit in here for 2 hours and do, whatever it is I'm going to do. I need to make videos, or I need to work on, this web page or whatever I'm working on, and setting aside that time. I saw it was a podcast recently, and there was a gentleman on there talking about the amount of time in your day and the amount of time that you really should put forward towards your business. And he was saying if you can't do, 10 hours a week is really what you should be aiming for if you're just starting out, right? Actually setting aside that time. So, I know people who work really early mornings before they go to their full-time job, or really late at night, where you can have that quiet time. But just being able to really intentionally set aside that time is what you need to do.
And I think that's a challenge, knowing that you have family, then you think, oh, family is my first business, then you're forgetting you have another business. But I think we need to mentally put it in our minds that, you know what, this is actually business. Put in those hours in the day, and then the rest can wait.
You got to think of it as like clocking into another job.
Yes.
You're literally clocking in and putting in that time. I think another thing that people really look at when they talk about moms and family and business is we have that mom guilt. I think,
I get it.
being, your heart tugs when somebody's, asking for something or, or needing something. And, so I think, being able to deal with that mom guilt in a different way, it's like you give so much of yourself. I think when you're building a business or even just taking that time to work on yourself, be it exercise or meditate or whatever, allowing yourself and giving yourself that permission to say, you know what, I deserve this, I need this, out of a 24-hour time, taking, minus sleep, of course, taking an hour and a half or 2 hours to yourself to be able to, either pour back into yourself what you need to give to your family or to build that business that is still going to eventually benefit that family.
Exactly.
One way or another, either you build a business to where you have more free time to give to your family, right? Because a lot of people go into business thinking that, I'm going to build my own schedule, and then you'll have that free time. Or financially, you're going to pour into your family, right?
True.
Which the time thing is another misconception of entrepreneurship. I think you asked about what was the surprise, and I think that was the surprise. I think people put in more hours during entrepreneurship, but it's when and how you put in those hours. I think that, people start to see the flexibility.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah.
So, any last closing words?
I just want to thank you, Irene, and for inviting me to do this. I think, just this community. I really, really appreciate the Mountain House community and, backing each other and building that spirit of community to where everybody wants to see, each other be successful. And that's been great. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah.
Yes, so one of the things that I appreciate about conversations like this is that they remind us that launching is only the beginning.
Yes.
Success isn't built in a single announcement. It's built in the decisions we make daily and showing up consistently, learning continuously, and serving people faithfully is very important. Adrian, thank you for sharing not just your journey, but your lessons that you've learned along the way. And perhaps our viewers, the next business, the next nonprofit or community initiative in this city, they need to start and not wait on the sidelines and wait for permission. And so today is that reminder that somebody needs to get up, step up there and begin doing it. Thank you for joining us on Heart Talk in the City, where hearts connect and stories heal.